This is a presentation on one of my favorite things, teaching yoga to athletes. My name is Sage Rountree, and yes, that is my real name. It was the 1970s. My parents were cool. And I am going to, in this presentation, share something with you that might, I hope, completely change how you think about teaching yoga to athletes if you've been laboring under one of the more common misconceptions people have about this field. Because the most successful teachers who are working with athletes actually are doing less and not more, and they're getting paid really handsomely. And the irony here is that doing less and not more is the key to earning $250 or even $500 an hour teaching athletes. And it's got nothing to do with complex sequences or advanced knowledge of anatomy or even years of athletic experience. So in this training, I'm going to share the one insight, the one mindset shift that's helped hundreds of teachers transform their careers, help them start working with Division I college teams, with Olympic athletes, and with, of course, the folks that we usually come into contact with day to day, the dedicated recreational competitors, often within weeks of starting to learn this approach. So let me ask you that question. What if doing less was the secret to earning more? And get us into where we're going. Today, we're going to explore why most yoga teachers have teaching athletes completely backwards. And I'll show you the simple approach that actually works with athletes. We'll cover why athletes don't need more complexity from their yoga practice. They need less. Why less is more. You'll learn the fundamental difference between yoga for athletes and athletic yoga, and why understanding this distinction is the key to you having great success in this field. I'll tell you some stories from teachers I've worked with who've transformed their careers using this approach. And unless y'all have a ton of questions at the end, I'll tell you some stories about my work, most recently with UNC football and basketball already this season. I will give you a concrete technique that you can use immediately, and I'm going to show you exactly how you can position yourself as the yoga teacher that athletes actually want to work with. By the end of today's session, you will understand that you really do already have everything you need to start teaching athletes successfully. Plus, I'll give you a clear path forward to building a profitable practice in this niche, which is super rewarding and fun. And remember, if you have questions as we go, you can submit them two ways. One, at the very bottom of the chat, you'll see that Q&A graphic. It looks like two speech bubbles. You can type your question there. Or here on Butter, you can put yourself in the queue from the sidebar, and I'll take questions at the end. You can come off mute at that point and ask your question on camera if you like. But if you are watching this on the recap or you have questions after we hang up, which is kind of the way that I always think of questions, they happen as soon as we say goodbye, you can always email me. I'm info@sagerountree.com, no letter D in my last name. Or you can DM me on social media. I'm @SageRountree on all the socials. Or you can message me in Comfort Zone Yoga, which is my virtual studio focused on yoga teacher development, where we're meeting right now. Okay, now I think I know why you're here today, because many teachers write to me about their challenges around teaching athletes. They want to know how they can adapt what for some of us as teachers might be a really stretchy practice for athletes who are tight, who struggle with traditional poses. Teachers tell me they want to increase their income. They feel like they need to increase their income, but they're not quite sure about whether they have the right qualifications to specialize in working with athletes, or they just want to differentiate themselves in a crowded market like NOAA in DC. That's a big market for yoga. So I know you're good teachers. I know you really care about your students, and I really know that you want to make a difference at the same time as you are earning some money on your investment in yoga. Maybe you're earning $25 at the gym teaching yoga, or $30 or $50 at the studio. You're probably working evenings and weekends. That's when many yoga classes are given, and you might still be struggling to build the gorgeous career that you envisioned when you first spent thousands of dollars on your yoga teacher training. You probably heard, I've even told you, that teaching athletes can be really lucrative, but you might not be sure where to start. I bet you think you need additional certifications, more athletic experience, or deeper anatomical knowledge, right? There's always some next step, some next thing that we tell ourselves we need before we're really ready. You're spending money on trainings, but are you spending it on the right trainings for working with athletes? Perhaps you've tried teaching athletes before and you felt like something was missing, like you weren't quite connecting with them in the way that you hoped. And I bet you're here because you sense there's a better way. And yeah, You're right. So let's talk a little bit about my work in this field so you get some context of who I am. I've spent over 20 years immersed in yoga and athletics from many different angles. I started as an athlete taking yoga classes, as a marathoner preparing to run a marathon. I became a yoga teacher. I worked as an endurance sports coach, training others to compete in triathlon, duathlon, running, and distance mountain bike racing. And I've been training yoga teachers to work with athletes since 2012. I had the privilege of working with Hall of Fame coach Roy Williams, the UNC basketball coach, for over a decade as his private yoga teacher. And I've been working with the UNC men's basketball team for over a decade, teaching UNC football since 2008. Football is currently coached by legend Bill Belichick, and this is a standing weekly gig I have working with them this football season. So I wore my jacket today, go Heels. I've also worked with NBA and NFL players, with Olympic athletes, and of course, athletes at every level, not just at the top, but all the way down to middle school athletes. And I've also written multiple books on yoga for athletes. My first book, The Athlete's Guide to Yoga, came out in 2008, and I'm turning in book number 13 on Monday. I've trained hundreds of teachers who now work with elite teams and with recreational athletes. So yeah, I have the bona fides. But here's what's most important about my background. Every single one of these experiences taught me that yoga's most simple and yoga's most profound messages are what you need. Yoga's most simple and yoga's most profound messages are what resonate deeply with athletes. The complex approaches that I initially thought I needed and that you might think you need were really getting in the way of creating the transformation that athletes were seeking. So the insight I'm going to share with you today came not from my extensive credentials or my impressive connections, and I have some good connections, I'm not going to lie. Networking is a huge part of getting in with a team. But the insight comes from listening to what athletes actually told me they needed, and me being willing to completely reimagine how yoga could serve them, how I might help athletes with yoga. And this approach transformed the careers of many of my student teachers, like my student Amanda, who went from struggling with climbing up with complicated sequences at a climbing gym where she was teaching yoga, into running the most popular classes there, with athletes specifically requesting her by name. I'll also tell you a little later about my student Taryn, who went from feeling uncertain about working with athletes to teaching Harvard University teams and working with Olympic competitors. And then I had a student, Jen, who wasn't even a yoga teacher when she started with me, and now she works with the U.S. men's national gymnastic team. So these teachers don't have superhuman qualifications. They learn to apply the one fundamental principle that changes everything about how you approach teaching athletes. And this same principle has helped teachers command rates of lots of money, $100, $200, even $500 per hour, while creating profound impact for athletes at every level. And the beautiful thing about this less is more approach is that it works whether you're teaching a professional soccer team or a recreational running group, whether you're working with teenage volleyball players or with master swimmers or with golfers out by the first tee. The principle stays the same and the results will speak for themselves. So let's go on to this slide, because here's the problem. Here's the belief that keeps most yoga teachers stuck when they want to work with athletes. We think we need more. We think we need to become more complex, more technical, more athletic ourselves in order to serve athletes effectively. We look at athletes and we think we need advanced anatomy knowledge or sophisticated sequences that mimic sports movements, or years of competitive experience ourselves, or complex biomechanical alignment cues, or special certifications. And we see other fitness professionals who are already working with these very athletes who have exercise science degrees and who have sports medicine training. And we assume that we need to become more like them in order to be credible. And this belief is reinforced everywhere we look. Most Yoga for Athletes content shows complex sequences that are designed to enhance performance. And we see instructors talking about specific muscle actions and biomechanics. We see advanced poses being taught as functional training. And I'm putting quotes around functional because if you're using your body, it's already functional. So naturally, we think we need to add more technical knowledge and more complexity and more sophistication to our teaching. We spend our time trying to learn sports science or studying anatomy texts that doesn't get you very far, or designing elaborate sequences for athletes. But here's the truth, the critical insight. This approach of more being more is not only unnecessary, it's actually counterproductive. When we try to become more technical and more complex, we lose the very thing that makes yoga valuable to athletes in the first place. We start trying to be something we're not instead of offering what yoga actually has to give. Let me tell you the story that proved this to me beyond any doubt. Early in my work with athletes, I was invited to teach the UNC football team. The pressure, at least to me, felt really enormous because those were elite athletes, some destined for the NFL. I felt like I needed to prove myself worthy of working with them. I also had this little complex about me being just an endurance athlete, just a marathoner, and not a football player. So I spent a lot of time getting ready. I spent weeks preparing elaborate sequences. I was looking at football-specific movement patterns and the biomechanics of different positions on the football team and thinking about flows targeting hip mobility for the linebackers and shoulder stability for the quarterbacks. I memorized anatomical cues that would demonstrate my deep understanding of their bodies. And I walked into that locker room, and yeah, I taught them in the locker room for years, ready to impress them with my expertise in their sport and my sophisticated understanding of their training needs. But then something happened that changed my entire approach to this work. The linebackers, the O-line, the big, sticky, beefy guys filed in and plopped down on the locker room carpet. And one of them looked up at me and said, "Coach Sage, can we just do breath exercises and Shavasana?" My first thought was panic. Like I had prepared this elaborate session to show them I understood their needs, and all they wanted was to breathe and to rest. I worried they'd think I didn't know what I was doing, but then I looked around the room, the locker room carpet, and these powerful guys were lying on their backs with their eyes closed, like shoulders dropping away from their ears, maybe for the first time all day. Like the tension was literally melting from their faces. They just wanted to lie there. And that's when I understood they didn't need another coach telling them how to optimize their performance. They sure didn't need someone yelling at them to go and push and find their edge. They needed some mothering. They needed some permission to let their guard down. They needed someone to help them remember that they were human beings and not just athletic machines. So with the O-line, we spent our whole session on breathing, tiny amount of gentle mobilization and restorative work. No complex poses, no Sanskrit terminology, even no detailed instruction. Just simple practices that help them reconnect with their bodies in a completely different way. And when we finished, these big guys, these 300-pound guys, thanked me really genuinely. Lots of gratitude. One said it was the first time his shoulders had relaxed in months. They asked when I was coming back. I worked with them all season, and they stayed all season long just as eager for Shavasana. And that day taught me that my value to athletes is not my ability to be more like their other coaches. It's in my ability to offer them something completely different. So the breakthrough insight for y'all is this. Yoga for athletes is fundamentally different from athletic yoga. I know why you might be confused, because this is how I was confused way back in the day. Athletic yoga is what you see, especially now in 2025, in many fitness-focused classes. Students come to yoga for a workout. It's conditioning disguised as yoga. And it's teaching you how to find your edge and how to push your limits and how to develop comfort with discomfort. These are good skills to develop. Don't get me wrong here. Athletic yoga has its place, especially if this is people's entry point into a practice that has so much more to offer them than simply conditioning. But yoga for athletes serves a completely different purpose. These athletes already get their conditioning at practice. They already know how to push their limits. They already live with discomfort every day. And what they need from yoga is balance. What they need from yoga is focus and presence and recovery. What they need from yoga is someone to teach them relaxation and help them develop comfort with comfort. They need, as I said, a little bit of mothering and a little bit of permission just to lie there and breathe and relax. This distinction changes everything, because once you understand that your role as the yoga teacher to athletes is not to add more intensity to their training, but to provide the missing piece, to provide balance, You stop trying to be another fitness instructor or another strength and conditioning coach, and you start being the yoga teacher that they actually need. This means offering simplicity instead of complexity, ease instead of intensity, and tools for mental training instead of more physical challenge. And this is where your value lies as a yoga teacher. And this is why you can charge premium rates for this work. What helped me was learning to stop trying to impress athletes and start serving them. So instead of asking, how can I show them that I know about their sport? I learned to ask, what do these athletes actually need that they're not getting anywhere else? And sometimes that is literally asking them, what do you need today? What have you been doing in practice lately? How was the game yesterday? What are you feeling and where? And the answer to what they need is almost always the same. It's balance, it's recovery, it's mental training tools, and it's permission to simply be present with their bodies without having to perform or to achieve anything. Athletes spend all of their practice trying to perform, trying to achieve, trying to make things happen in the sthira side of the sthira-sukha equation. And yoga gives them an opportunity to be in being mode rather than doing mode, to be in sukha mode rather than sthira mode. So when you come to study teaching yoga to athletes with me, this is exactly what I'll help you discover and really internalize. You'll learn to recognize that your value doesn't lie in adding more complexity to athletes' already intense training. Your value lies in providing the essential missing piece. And you'll understand how to position yourself as the teacher who offers what no one else on the training team can provide. You'll discover that athletes don't need you to understand every detail of their sport. They need you to understand how to help them find balance, how to manage stress, how to recover more effectively, and how to access their mental game through simple, practical tools, like taking a slow breath in and letting it go. When you shift from trying to impress to serving your athletes' actual needs, then everything will change for you. Your athletes will start requesting you specifically. They'll refer their teammates, and they'll pay premium rates because they'll recognize the unique value that you provide. Let me give you a concrete example of how this works by telling you about my student, Amanda. Amanda's story shows the power of keeping things simple and meeting athletes where they're at. Amanda was teaching at a climbing gym, and she was struggling with the same challenges many of you face. She'd try to guide climbers through traditional sequences, try to wedge them into a yoga mold, and she would watch them struggle with the poses that their tight bodies couldn't access. She spent hours planning complex classes that left her students confused and herself feeling ineffective. And once Amanda learned this approach that I teach in teaching yoga to athletes, this approach of less being more, she stopped trying to force traditional yoga onto her climbers and started asking them what they actually needed. Climbers spend hours gripping holds, creating tension in their forearms and shoulders, and they need release, not more strengthening. So instead of elaborate vinyasa flows with lots of hands downtime, Amanda started offering simple stretches for overworked forearms. Instead of giving them complicated alignment cues, she gave them tools they could use during rest periods while climbing. And instead of trying to improve their flexibility, she helped them recover more effectively between sessions. And the transformation was immediate. Amanda's students started telling her that her classes felt completely different from other yoga they'd tried. They really appreciated having all the options that she gave them and learning how to use props effectively. And most importantly of all, they kept coming back. That's the best vote of confidence you can get as a yoga teacher is returning students. Amanda wound up creating a mellow flow class. As she called it mellow flow, it was a format that became the most popular class at the gym. And now she teaches with confidence, knowing exactly how to meet her athletes where they are rather than where she thought they should be. Taryn is the student you see here in the middle, and Taryn's story demonstrates how this approach works even when you're starting without connections in the athletic world. Taryn was transitioning from a corporate job at an ad agency when I started working with her and becoming a full-time yoga teacher. And she knew she wanted to work with athletes, but she wasn't sure where to start. She felt intimidated by the idea of approaching coaches, and she wasn't sure how to speak their language. But once she learned to focus on serving athletes' needs rather than impressing the athletes or their coaches with her knowledge, the doors started opening naturally. She approached local running clubs, not with elaborate presentations about her qualifications, but with simple offerings that talked about how she could address the runner's specific challenges. She started with basic workshops on breathing techniques for endurance and simple stretches for common trouble spots. Nothing complicated, nothing that required extensive athletic background to teach effectively. And the results, again, spoke for themselves. Her athletes experienced immediate benefits. They started bringing their friends. Coaches noticed the difference in their athletes' recovery and their focus. And within months, Taryn was working with the Harvard University teams. She still is today. You see Jen here on the right, and Jen's story addresses the concern that you might have that you need extensive yoga teaching experience to work with athletes effectively. Now, Jen was a physical therapist when I started working with her, also a runner. She took my teaching yoga to athletes training before she was even officially a yoga teacher, before she did her first 200-hour yoga teacher training. You might think someone with her medical background, being a physical therapist, she's actually a professor of physical therapy, would focus on the technical aspects of yoga when she's working with athletes, but Jen discovered something different. Jen's transformation came when she learned to emphasize the mental and emotional benefits of the practice rather than just the physical ones. She saw that her athletes already had plenty of people telling them about their bodies, and what they needed was someone who could help them with their minds and their spirits. Jen learned to teach simple breathing techniques for competition anxiety, some basic meditation practices for focus, and gentle movement for recovery. Nothing that required advanced yoga skills, but everything that addressed what athletes actually struggle with. And today she works with Olympic gymnasts, not because she has the most yoga experience. I mean, what, do you imagine she's trying to teach flexibility to Olympic gymnasts? No, but because she learned to offer what they really need: mental training tools and stress management techniques that directly improve their performance, no stretching required. So let's recap what we've covered so far. The most successful approach to teaching athletes is simpler, not more complex. Yoga for athletes is about providing balance to their intense training, not adding more intensity. Your value lies in offering what no one else on their training team can provide: tools for recovery, tools for mental training, and tools for nervous system regulation, all rolled into one. And for this, you don't need years of additional certifications, you don't need extensive sports knowledge, and you don't need perfect athletic credentials of your own. You also don't need to be the most spiritual and bendy yogi in the room. You just need to understand how to meet athletes where they are and provide what they're actually missing in their training. When you embrace this approach, you can confidently teach any athlete, regardless of their sport or level, while commanding premium rates for expertise that transforms their performance and well-being. When you apply this approach, here's what becomes possible for you. You'll walk into any room full of athletes with complete confidence, knowing exactly how to help them, regardless of their sport or experience level. You'll stop second-guessing yourself and start trusting that you have exactly what they need. And you'll command rates of $150, $200, even $500 per session. Now, y'all, that's not just a number. It's my current hourly rate for teams, because athletes will recognize the unique value you provide. Teams will start requesting you specifically. Individual athletes will refer their training partners because they experience real results from your work. And you'll build a sustainable practice serving people who genuinely appreciate what you offer. Instead of struggling to fill general population classes, you'll have dedicated students, dedicated private lesson students, athletes who prioritize your sessions because they directly improve their performance and their recovery. You'll become an essential part of athletes' training teams, not just a nice-to-have add-on. Coaches will start referring athletes to you because they see the difference your work makes in their performance and their mental game. And most importantly, you'll find deep fulfillment in this work because you will know you're making a real difference in people's lives. You're helping them perform better while staying healthier and more balanced. If you want to learn the complete system for applying this approach, I would love to tell you about my signature program, Teaching Yoga to Athletes. Now, I am currently at work right here in the studio on recording its 8th iteration, which will be in place by October 1st, at which point its price is going up. This comprehensive training gives you everything you need to confidently and effectively teach any athlete, whether you're working with recreational runners or the U.S. national men's gymnastics team. Since 2012, this program has helped hundreds of teachers build successful practices working with athletes at every level. This program includes everything you need to land your first clients, from marketing templates to pitch scripts that help you speak the coach's language. You'll also get ongoing support from me through monthly office hours where you can bring real-world challenges and get immediate guidance. And if you are working towards your 300-hour yoga teacher training, teaching yoga to athletes plus my mentorship membership, Mastering the Art of Yoga Sequencing, will get you there. It's all 300 hours in just 2 programs. Here's exactly what you'll receive when you join Teaching Yoga to Athletes. There's a complete online training curriculum that walks you through every aspect of this work, from understanding athletes' mindset to designing effective sessions to building your business. You can watch the videos, you can read the transcripts, you can read it as an ebook if, like me, you love to read on Kindle. You can also listen to the lectures in private podcast format. If you spend a lot of time in the car or walking a dog, that's just another way that you can consume the content. I really want to meet you where you are. You also get some personal time with me, personal coaching through 2 one-on-one strategy calls, where we'll create your specific action plan and address any challenges you're facing. In those strategy calls, I'll give you some one-to-one feedback. And I'm someone who's been doing this for years with teams at the professional and top collegiate levels. We'll make an action plan for what sport you should target first, exactly who you should reach out to, what you should write to them, and what price to quote. You'll feel confident, and that confidence swagger is what will help you get the gig. I will teach you in Yoga to Athletes a movement analysis framework that will show you how to quickly assess what any given athlete or position player needs, regardless of their sport. You'll get sequence reviews where I'll give you detailed feedback on your lesson plans, plus a lot of marketing support to help you position yourself effectively in your local market, whether you want to work with CrossFit athletes, with golfers, with runners, or with professional sports teams. You'll get the complete curriculum. It's got done-for-you lesson plans, meditation scripts, movement sequences that you can use with any type of athlete. There is access to my movement and mindfulness libraries to give you follow-along videos so you can experience the practices themselves before you can experience them yourself before you teach them. And this is really important, that you embody these practices yourself. Makes it so much easier for you to teach them. I'll give you a whole host of professional templates that include everything you need to land clients, because this can be tough to know where to begin. What do I even say if I'm going to approach a team? I got you. Pitch scripts for approaching teams, pricing guides for your market, and contract templates for working with organizations. I will work with you to put together a whole pitch packet and then a proposed contract once you get the yes. You'll also get monthly office hours for a full year that gives you ongoing access to guidance and community support inside Comfort Zone Yoga. There's a unique space for folks who are in Teaching Yoga to Athletes. And of course, I will review any pitch for you, and we'll work together to get you your dream gig. So I mentioned that the price is going up. It's going up on October 1st. Today, you've discovered that teaching athletes successfully is simpler than you thought, but also more valuable than you might have imagined. So you can earn back an investment in this program pretty quickly. Now, you already have everything you need to start this work right now. What you might also need is the system to apply it effectively and the confidence to charge what you're worth. Teaching Yoga to Athletes gives you both. The investment between now and October 1st is $2,000, but it will go to $2,500 on October 1st. And whether you sign up now or after the new program launches, you can pay in full or you can spread this across 5 monthly payments, currently $400, after October 1st, $500. You can start today and you can be booking your first teams and athletes for your private lessons in a few weeks. With these proven strategies and your increased rates, the program will pay for itself in under 10 sessions. And you'll get access not just to the current and then the forthcoming iteration of the program that'll be ready in about 2 weeks, but also to all future versions too. To help you feel confident in this investment, because I recognize it's a big chunk of change, I offer you a guarantee. If you get in and you find that this isn't for you in the first 30 days, I will refund your money and I won't make it weird. Now, at this point, you may be thinking, I'm too old, or I'm too young, or I'm too big, or I'm too small, or I'm too out of shape, or I'm too removed from my athletic days, so I can't specialize in athletes because of the way I look or the way I feel. Real talk, y'all. It's not about you. Decenter yourself and put your students front and center. If you teach simple things well, you will have a huge impact, no matter what you look like, no matter how you feel. And even further real talk, take a good look at the NFL coaches on the sidelines in Thursday Night Football tonight. They aren't all exactly in peak physical shape, but they have the know-how to help the players achieve their best. And so do you. Enroll now and you can be your player's hero, no matter what you look like, no matter your age. Or at this point, you might be thinking, yeah, that sounds great, but there's no major market team near me. That may be the case. But no matter where you live, there are athletes who are willing to spend really good money to feel balanced, relaxed, and focused. They might not be playing at the sold-out stadiums, but they're at the country clubs playing golf, and they're paying golf and tennis pros a whole lot for technique lessons. You have an audience that are primed for yoga. Yoga is a great complement to that work. Or these athletes are at the local bike store where they spend thousands of dollars each year to shave ounces off of their bike weight. I can't tell you how much money I spent on carbon fiber in my racing days as a triathlete. You can likely teach at the country club and right inside the local bike or running or triathlon store. That makes it even easier for these athletes to take your class and improve, and it gets you out from underneath the studio structure. Now, I'm a yoga studio owner, of course. I think yoga studios are fantastic, but I also recognize that yoga studios are not the only place where yoga happens, and they're not necessarily the best place for the yoga teacher to maximize their income. Enroll in teaching yoga to athletes now, and you'll learn how to connect with these clients wherever they are. Another thing I often hear from folks is, well, I haven't been teaching yoga long or at all. That's okay. As I've shown, you really don't need to know much, just know what you know. Maybe you're like my student Leslie, who had business school classroom teaching experience and athletic experience, but was comfortable teaching yoga for athletic balance. The same class I teach, she started teaching it at my studio right after taking this training. She later went on to get a 200-hour certification, but only several years later during the pandemic, she took an online program. Or maybe you're like Jen, who you remember took training and wound up teaching the U.S. men's national gymnastics team. Inside teaching yoga to athletes, I'll work with you to get you feeling really confident, really capable, and relaxed in front of the classroom, because you being regulated will convey directly to your students. Y'all, your athletes are not going to ask you about what kind of training you've done, who you studied yoga with, how many hours, are you up to date on your Yoga Alliance registry. They don't care. They just want to feel better. Now, the coach hiring you to teach yoga to their athletes might want to know, so you can refer them to me. Enroll now, and I'll help you find your own best path, and I will happily give you a reference. All right, you now understand the key to success teaching athletes. Yoga for athletes is not athletic yoga. Your role is to provide simplicity, balance, and recovery rather than more complexity and more intensity. You've seen how teachers like Amanda and Taryn and Jen transformed their careers using this approach. You have everything you need to start this work. What you need now is the complete system and the confidence to apply it effectively. You can literally get started today. Your athletes are waiting for a teacher who will meet them where they are and provide what they truly need: breath exercises and shavasana. And that teacher can be you. I hope that you don't feel intimidated by this field. I hope that you feel excited at the possibilities here, because the possibilities are very huge. This is a fantastic niche for you to get into, and you probably already have everything you need to get rolling. I would just love to get the opportunity to work with you to get your confidence in place, to get your pitch perfect, and to get you into this great niche alongside me teaching yoga to athletes. So if you have questions, I am here to answer them. And if you don't have questions, I have a few stories I want to tell you. All right. So while you're thinking about whether you might have any questions, I'll say I was working with the basketball team. You saw a picture earlier on in the slides. I came to visit them in August. That photo was from August at the end of their training camp. And this is not the first time this has happened with basketball, but it is the first time since Coach Hubert Davis has been our head coach. But I was brought in at the end of training camp as a special treat for them. Back in the day when Roy was the coach, he would have me come in as a special treat, and Hubert did the exact same thing. They just didn't know who I was. It used to be they knew who I was, and I would kind of be in the corner, and they'd come into the practice gym. And I remember 7-footer Joelle James like scooped me up once and like held me up in the air. I'm so excited that we get to do yoga because they come into the room thinking they're going to be doing wind sprints, and instead they get yoga as a treat. So I went to teach them in August. That was the picture that you saw. And they didn't know who I was, but they were really game, spent the entire session just like so carefully following every instruction, relaxed so well at the end. And once we were done, nobody got up off their mat. Like they sat up, but nobody wanted to even climb off of their mat. And one of the players said, it was a Wednesday morning. He said, it feels like Monday morning, not like Wednesday morning. Like he had just had a weekend reset, which is so sweet. And that's an example of this less is more experience that you get to have when you're teaching athletes. They want less. They want the recovery. They want the mobilization. They want the breath exercises. They want the shavasana, and they want the down regulation of their nervous system. The other story that I wanted to tell you was this. I was at football on Monday, and back in training camp, I had giant amounts of guys. It was required that they come through yoga on their recovery day in training camp. But now that the season has begun, yoga is an optional activity, and kids are coming because they really want the recovery and the downtime. And one of the guys that I was working with on Monday had some hip pain. So I was thinking, I'm going to teach him some really light mobilization stuff. And we were doing like a supine leg extension. He was down on his back and extending his leg up toward the ceiling and back down, just some gentle, like kind of hamstring flossing. And he said, oh, this is exactly what I'm doing in my PT. And I thought, that's right. And after spending a lot of time working around the side of his hip and the back of his hip, I thought, okay, now I need to give this kid something to open the front of the hip, because we don't want to just like target one particular area. We want everything to be balanced. So I had him go into a supported bridge and pull on my legs. And I should have thought a little bit harder before I said, grab my leg. The 300-pound guy. He started tugging on my leg. Look, whoa. But I had him stretched out over the rack like you would do in bridge pose to the block. And the trainer came through the room and said, nice, coming through. So you are filling a very specific role when you go there. You don't need to be an athletic trainer. You don't need to be a physical therapist. You already know a few simple things from your yoga training that will help these athletes recover better, help them downregulate, help them feel centered and balanced. Oh, great question, Sandy. This is such a good question. So Sandy asked, my question was basketball players. Do you have longer or taller mats for them? The answer is ideally, yes. And for football, we don't use like regular yoga mats, although we do have some in it. The group is very big. We'll use the cheapo standard issue yoga mats. We use Pilates mats, which are way thicker. And when you have a 300-pounder down on his knees, having that thicker cushioning can be really useful. For basketball, yes, they do sell bigger mats. They sell like 7 and 8 foot long mats. But here's the thing, and this is pointing toward Jody's question, which I see in the chat, also a really good question. You're not doing a vinyasa class with these guys, right? You're giving them a complement to the work that they're already doing in training. So everything is lower to the ground, everything is more mellow, and we don't need to have like a down dog length or a plank length of mat for the players. So that's a long-winded answer. The short answer is yes, it would be nice to have longer mats for taller people, but it's not critical, in part because everything that we're doing is very low down to the ground. And that's Jody's question. In these classes, do you mostly have them stay low to the ground, or do you incorporate standing work? It totally depends. Something that I'll get into with you when we're working together inside teaching yoga to athletes, but I'll give you a little preview of it right here, is this X of inverse proportionality. When an athlete is in training camp, when the season hasn't started yet and competition has not yet ramped up, then you might go a little bit harder with them. You might have more standing stuff. I know football really wanted me to work balance. So we did some pretty sophisticated balance stuff, and the football players are actually quite good at it. So we did a whole lot of standing in training camp, but now that we're in season, we are a lot lower to the ground. So when the athlete's sport intensity is not that low, but it's going to be getting higher, that's when the intensity of yoga could be higher. And as the season goes on, they're ramping up, they're getting more tired, you're going easier and easier with them as you go. So that's this principle of inverse proportionality. When we work together in teaching yoga to athletes, you're going to learn the concept of periodization. which is about taking your body through various cycles where you're gradually increasing load and stress in order to encourage your body to adapt and change. And that's a useful concept for us as yoga teachers to understand without needing to know a whole lot about exercise physiology, understanding that you want to give them something that is a complement and not just piling on more stress is really important. Noah's got another great question following up on Jody's question. Do you do any sun salutations or how do you manage a warm-up sequence? I generally don't do sun salutations, Noah, and that's true not just when I'm going to the team, but also when athletes come to my class. I teach a regular class called Yoga for Athletic Balance, and while we do work a lot of balance, we don't do a whole lot of up and down. Part of that comes from my experience as an athlete in the yoga class, deep into a training cycle. Toward the end of my periodized training cycle, say to run a marathon, I felt like my body was getting charred almost to a crisp. Like the training analogy is that when you're getting yourself into shape, you're kind of like trying to find the right toast on your marshmallow and you have to turn it a little bit. But if you hold it too close to the fire for too long, it's going to get burnt. And I feel like when I was deep in those running training cycles for marathons and ultra marathons, and I was in a class that had a lot of sun salutations, I felt was a little bit too close to the fire for my hamstrings, for my blood pressure, because my blood volume was higher as a consequence of my training. And the positional shifts of a whole lot of up and down would sometimes make me woozy. So right then, based on my own experience, I thought, I think I can spend less time with the up and down, less time with my hands on the floor, and then getting back up again. So I have, as a consequence, developed a whole host of sequences that get the body moving, but don't have a whole lot of positional shifts with the head going from over the heart to back under and back up again. And if you want to see what I mean, you can check out my book called The Art of Yoga Sequencing. But I also have a whole playlist on my YouTube channel called Hands Free Flow. And you'll see some examples, and all of those sequences you'll see in that playlist are exactly what I would teach to my athletes. Probably a little bit slower, especially in season, and maybe with fewer rounds of repetition, but they can also go right into your vinyasa class. I think these are sequences that your CrossFitters would really like a whole lot. Absolutely. I'm so glad that was helpful. So yes, it's not athletic yoga, it's yoga for athletes. And while they're capable of doing a whole lot, we don't need to be the ones to train them. One more point I want to make for y'all before I wrap us up. It's that not only do you not need to be doing the strength and conditioning work unless you are specifically asked. And there have been times, like I said, football wanted me to work balance. Way back in the day when I first started working with football, the coach said, yeah, give him some of that Pilates. I was like, okay, so I did give him some of that Pilates because he knew that Pilates is good for core strength. But in general, you don't want to be stepping on the toes of the strength and conditioning coach. You want to be the complement. You want to be doing the things that their strength and conditioning coach could never, which is saying like, take a deep breath and let it go. Feel your body melt down. All the woo-woo fun stuff that we love about yoga, athletes are going to love. You're going to be surprised at how much they really like this permission to let go, the okay to close their eyes, the encouragement for stillness and recovery. It's just a huge gift, and it doesn't require thinking up more sophisticated sequences or adding in arm balances. Although football players are really good at crow pose too. It's about getting them quiet, getting them still, and giving them some time to downregulate and recover. All right, so I'm going to wrap us up here. Our next call here in Comfort Zone Conversations, which is my monthly live call for everybody in the zone at Comfort Zone Yoga, is a mindset call. It is talking about what you need to do to become almost everyone's favorite yoga teacher. We'll talk about the mindset shift that you need to make to get there. Here's a hint. It's kind of like a less is more approach. And we will talk about how you can increase retention in your classes by making it less about you and way more about your students. You can RSVP for that in the zone at Comfort Zone Yoga, and that will also get its recap going up inside Comfort Zone Yoga and on my YouTube channel as well. Y'all be looking in your inbox. It's going to take me an hour or two to get this all set up for you, but I'm going to send you a really special discount code that's good only through Sunday night, and just a couple emails over the weekend reminding you that this is on deep discount. Remember, on October 1st, the whole program goes up because I'm going to reshoot all the lectures and zhuzh up the workbook that's involved with this program as well. So grateful for you for showing up live today. I love doing these calls, and I would love to see you next week as we talk about a completely different topic, but that also has some connection to this one. Thanks so much for being here, everyone. I hope to see you next week.